Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with InsideTheU back here for the Transfer Portal Show. I will be recapping day 2 of how it looks for Miami. Also, I'm going to present some names to keep an eye on to maybe fill some holes left behind with some transfers. We'll get into that. The 3 guys that transferred today, that's running back Jaylan Knighton, wide receiver Romello Brinson, and defensive tackle Jordan Miller. Those 3 names added to the 11 from the first day brings the total to 14 departures. I still expect this number to grow. Just a reminder, it's a 45-day window. We're only in the second day. A lot of names around the country are popping in. Like I said, I'll get into some of that moving forward. But first, let's talk about some of the guys that are leaving, what it means for Miami, and maybe some ways that they can fill these holes. So let's start with Jaylan Knighton. You know, when he came to Miami as a 4-star recruit in 2020, I was excited about him. I thought he had a bright future at Miami. I really liked his game-breaking ability, his speed, the ability to make plays in the receiving game. And we did see some of that in his 3 years at UM, including the year where last year in 2021 when he led the team in rushing, 8 rushing touchdowns that year. It really felt like he could build on that year as he took over as a starter after being suspended to start the year, and he just had some good moments. However, this year was not a good season for him. The production was down, but everybody will remember the fumbles. He had way too many fumbles. Some of them are recovered, but it was those ones where he coughed them up, and some of them just didn't look good in the sense that he didn't have a lot of contact. So wherever he goes next, he's definitely going to have to make sure he tightens up on that. And also, during his time at Miami, he dealt with some minor injuries throughout, and I felt like that kind of stunted some of his production and also some of his growth and his progress as a player. So certainly, getting those 2 things under control in terms of, making sure he stays healthy and gets that fumble thing corrected. It will be very interesting to see where he goes next because I still think he's got ability. We just didn't always get to see that at Miami. He did get opportunities. I don't want to make it sound like he didn't get opportunities. He did get opportunities. It will be interesting to see what kind of offense he goes into next. I definitely feel like he's got to be more of a change of pace type of guy. Also a guy that they can get involved in the passing game because that's where I felt like we saw in his 3 years at Miami, that's where we saw him make the big plays. He had 4 touchdowns. That's pretty good for a receiving, for a running back catching the ball. Over 40 catches, as you can see here on the stats with his numbers. And, again, you look at his numbers, he did show some improvements this year. He goes over 5 yards a carry, which he had struggled to do the first 2 years. So he did make some improvements, but again, those fumbles just really added up and it really made a big difference. So, with Jaylan Knighton out of the mix, it is a little surprising. However, he did get benched during the season, and it just didn't seem like a good fit. And I felt like, improving the running back room in general was important for Miami. I will get into that in a little bit, maybe talk about some names that Miami could look at. But again, just with Jaylan Knighton out of the mix, Thad Franklin as well. So with Miami, they've got Trevante Citizen, Henry Parrish, Don Chaney Jr. currently on the roster. Walk-on Lucius Stanley graduated. He got some time throughout the season. But, they're going to look to add some pieces, I think. Again, they want to get bigger backs. So, again, just kind of going back with Jaylan Knighton. And again, some of these clips are from fall practices and just kind of showing you what it looked like back then. But, Jaylan certainly is a guy with a lot of confidence. I know he felt like he could really produce at a high level. And again, maybe some of the things that just didn't quite work out for him in terms of, having these games where he wasn't available for whatever reason. I felt like that kind of hurt him at times too. He was just kind of in and out, just the consistency of being available. Certainly, I feel like that would have helped him as well. But again, he's moving on. Miami's going to move on as well. And I felt like, also with this running back room, in addition to the style that they want to go with, they definitely, with Mario Cristobal, they want to have that bigger back, the guys that can be productive, really pounding the ball. And with Miami's running back situation this past season, with a guy like Jaylan, also Henry Parrish too, neither of these guys are bigger backs. And I think that hurt them because they didn't have the guys that they would typically like to have at that spot with their size and speed and their power. So let's take a look at the running backs around the country that have either officially entered the portal or they've expressed their intentions to do so. To me, there's some very intriguing names here, some very productive backs. You're seeing a bunch of guys over 1,000 yards. And these running backs here, these are just the ones that I picked out. I'm probably missing some names because names are continuing to pop up. But I think you should definitely keep an eye on these guys for different reasons. Either they were unproductive at their previous stops, but they have talent, or they were productive at a certain level and maybe they're looking to have an elevated conference or go against different competition. You're seeing a lot of 1,000-yard backs, as I mentioned. And another thing I want to mention too, like I said, Miami wants to go to this power running game. You definitely can tell with the way that it's emphasized with Cristobal, the offensive line, and everything that's going on there, just that point of emphasis. And I think one thing that they definitely would like to have is a little bit more power, a little bit more size. And to me, there's a handful of guys here that are over 200 pounds, listed over 200 pounds. And again, with Parrish and Knighton, those guys were well under 200. So I think that they're looking to maybe get some more size if you're looking, to add some different things to the room. So of these guys that are over 200, just start real quick. The guys with the last names of S, all of those guys over 200 pounds, so they're definitely ones to keep an eye on, in addition to LJ Johnson, and then also Kobe Pace out of Clemson. And I do want to make a note on Pace's numbers this year. Certainly with the other guys on this list, they've had more production, but Pace actually was pretty productive in 2021. And that's the thing with this list. There's different reasons why guys are going into the portal, whether it's opportunity at their current schools or just looking for a fresh start, as you see what's going on with Miami with their 14 departures. So I definitely think Miami should take a look at these guys for different reasons because, once again, I really like guys that have been proven that they've been productive, and I think that Miami should try to look into getting some of these guys, or at least reaching out, really evaluate what kind of style works for Miami, and in particular, if they think these guys can take the jump and essentially transition well and from a smaller conference to a bigger conference like the ACC. Or maybe just check in to see if those guys from the bigger conference, you're seeing a lot of SEC running backs on this list. If their talent is still there, a lot of these guys were highly regarded coming out of high school, but weren't quite as productive at the college level just yet. So Miami definitely is going to do their due diligence on those guys as well. I expect Miami to really look at the running back spot, some transfers that they might be able to add in this offseason. So let's talk about Romello Brinson. There was a lot of excitement about him. He's been at Miami for 2 years and decided to move on, but there's just a lot of excitement and the potential coming over from Northwestern and doing good things there in high school. He's a taller guy. He makes acrobatic catches. You see it in practice. You saw it just in the glimpse with his lone touchdown. He's always trying to make plays like that. I remember Tyler Van Dyke talking about that. Always, he was just a guy that did have talent and ability. He just didn't get on the field nearly enough. And you see his production, the 14 catches over the 2 seasons, 7 in each year, right around the same yards as well, a little over 90, each season. So he just didn't have a lot of production at Miami for different reasons. I felt like drops were sometimes an issue in practice, and I felt like the coaches just felt like they couldn't trust him nearly enough as he would have liked to get a lot of playing time on during game days. So he's entered the portal. He's going to see if he can get, maybe a different atmosphere, maybe a different environment just to get out of Miami. And also too, maybe he's looking for a different kind of offense now that he knows how his skills might translate best. So I'm very curious to see where he ends up. I'm also very curious to see how his career goes because, again, 2 years into it, he definitely showed some signs at times. He flashed his ability. It just wasn't nearly enough. And certainly I think he's someone to continue to watch. And I'm very curious also, not just with him, but the rest of the wide receivers. Keyshawn Smith is departing. We will see if everyone else is coming back or if Brinson and Smith are just the start of it. Definitely keep our eye on it moving forward. And the third guy to enter the portal today was defensive tackle Jordan Miller, fifth-year junior. He was pretty much just a reserve at Miami. But one thing I think that stands out to me with him is just his teammates really complimented him throughout the years about being a good teammate, good personality, someone that they enjoyed being around. And also, too, with Jordan, he understood his role. Certainly he would have liked to have played more, but he continued to work hard. And that's kind of what stood out to me when he arrived at Miami out of Jacksonville. Was not a highly regarded recruit, but he got in that rotation over the years, and he certainly did his best to be productive. And once again, just being available week in and week out is certainly a guy that did well in practices as well, showed good effort. So he's moving on. And, with Darrell Jackson also moving on, a starter, Miami's got some work to do to fill these holes on the defensive tackle, with these two guys going. Jake Lichtenstein will be back, but certainly they're looking for, high impact players at the defensive line position, like what they did last year where they got a bunch of transfers in. So definitely curious to see what happens with Miami defensive tackles, but definitely stay locked in to InsideTheU.com. Stay locked into the channel. Hit the like button if you like these kind of recaps each day. Thanks for watching, and take care.